Good morning. We've just got one person here so far, so we'll wait a couple more minutes to see if we get some more people joining in on the webinar. Um, Hopefully you can see the chat function in here, and you can feel free to pop in there, and let me know what your favorite reptile is. Let me put that message in the chat. I believe I've allowed videos for everyone as well, so feel free to turn on your camera if you'd like. I always enjoy seeing people's faces, but it's all right if you don't want to show your face in the video. That's totally fine. Good morning. You can hear me all right? Awesome. That's great. And I don't think everyone has access to audio. Let me see if I can find that function. The participants. Allow mic for attendees. Let's see.
Hi, good morning.
Good
I
morning.
think the chat is grayed out and it says chat is only available during the meeting and it's grayed out.
Okay. All right, that's okay then. Um, Let me try. I'm just gonna stop sharing that screen and share this screen. Oh, okay, that didn't work. There's always a few technical difficulties when I try to do these things. Okay. Well, hopefully some people might be able to access the chat function, but if not, no worries. If you do have questions or anything like that, I have enabled microphones and cameras. So if you do have a question, you can just unmute yourself and ask the question as well. Um, and yeah, if we're having some issues with the chat. Um, well, we've got a few people in here now, and it's just after 10, so we might as well get started, and we might have a few more people pop in. But everyone can hear me, which is great. So I'll just get my screen sharing again. You guys can see the roaming reptile screen here. Okay, awesome. Thank you for your patience while I sort through all the technical stuff. I'm just going to scoot you guys over to the side. Um, and we'll get things started. So, good morning and welcome everyone to the Roaming Reptiles webinar. It'll be our last webinar for the season, and we will start the webinar series back up again in October. But we're getting all set up and prepared for field season, so we're going to be really busy for the next few months. But I'm really glad that I can chat about our turtles, snakes, and that's right, just one lizard that I'll be chatting about today for our reptiles. Um, and yeah, hopefully you guys will learn some interesting things about these little scaly creatures that we have in Muskoka. My name's Amanda, and I'm the conservation coordinator at Muskoka Conservancy, if I haven't had the chance to meet you before. As I mentioned, and I think some of you heard, if you have questions along the way, um, feel free to put them in the chat if you can access it, and I will monitor it occasionally. Um, and we'll get to those questions towards the end. Or feel free to just unmute yourself and ask the question as well. I may not be able to see everyone's screens in sort of that side of Teams the entire time, So feel free to just interrupt me if you have to. And we will have a few minutes, I'm sure, for questions at the end as well. Yes, I see a hand there.
Hey, Amanda, just commenting, the chat seems grayed out, but the Q&A function seems to be working. So people might want to go to the Q&A button there.
Okay. Okay. So there's a hopefully everyone can see sort of like a ribbon at the top of the screen and there's a bunch of different functions. So it sounds like you could be able to put any questions you have by creating a post in the Q&A function. Thanks for pointing that out. Um, in terms of other housekeeping things, I'll just mention as well that the webinar is being recorded for folks who weren't able to join us live today. So just a heads up that you will be recorded if you are asking questions or have your camera on or things like that. But we will move into things now then. Here we go. So at Muskoka Conservancy and personally as well, it is really important to us that we acknowledge and express gratitude to the Indigenous peoples who have been living and working on Turtle Island for thousands of years, long before the arrival of European settlers who expropriated and displaced them from their homes and the land. Indigenous peoples cared for the land in a balanced way and continue to be stewards of the land, protectors of the water, and sustainers of life. In Muskoka, we're on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, which includes the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. The Huron-Wendat and the Haudenosaunee nations have also walked on this territory over time. Today, Muskoka is also home to three sovereign nations, the Wattamohawks First Nations, the Moose Deer Point First Nations, and the Moon River Métis. And these lands are covered by the Williams Treaty, the Robinson-Huron Treaty, and the J. Collins Land Purchase. And the Rice Lake Treaty 20 also covers a portion of southern Muskoka as well. We honor all Indigenous peoples, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit for their cultures, languages, wise teachings, and ways of being that have shaped this country since time began. I'd like to challenge everyone to think about, appreciate, give thanks, and take real actions towards real truth and reconciliation as we learn about our reptiles today, our turtles and our snakes, and their importance in the ecosystem, as well as when you are spending time outside and looking for these creatures as well. Thank you. I've put together a short little agenda for the webinar today as well. We're going to be talking all about reptiles, but I will start things off with a little bit of an update about Muskoka Conservancy and some background about us for those of you who might need a little bit of an update on what we've been up to. I'll chat generally about reptiles and what sort of characteristics our reptiles have that make them reptiles. And then we'll get specifically into the turtles of Muskoka and our snakes and lizard as well. And we'll spend some time identifying them and learning a bit more about them. So about Muskoka Conservancy, we are the Land Trust or Nature Conservancy of Muskoka, and we are a registered charity as well. And we've been around since about 1987, and our mission is to conserve and protect the nature of Muskoka. And we do that by acquiring lands either through generous community donation from community members. Sometimes communities will raise funds for us to be able to purchase lands as well. And in more recent years, there's been more government grants and family foundations and other funding sources interested in supporting land acquisition and protection as well. So we've been able to purchase some more lands in recent years as well. So through these different means of acquisition, we are now protecting 58 different areas across the region of Muskoka. And so this is adding up to just over 5,100 acres of land protected in the community, or in the region, I should say. Over 65,000 feet of sensitive shoreline on our major lakes, if you think Lake Muskoka, Lake Joseph, Lake Rosso, as well as our smaller lakes as well. and we're protecting nearly 900 acres of wetland. So these areas that we're protecting provide really important habitat for a number of plants and animals that call Muskoka home, especially many of our species at risk, which many of our reptiles do belong to that group as well. Um, so we're protecting these areas for nature and for wildlife, but also for future generations of humans to have be able to have access to these protected areas and nature, and keep it around and keep it protected in Muskoka. Most of the areas that we protect are closed to the public and protected strictly for nature conservation, but we do have a handful that do have public trails on them that are maintained, that people can access. And we also run a program, a Nature Quest program, which is a series of guided hikes that we have monthly throughout the year, where we do get to bring people to some of our areas that aren't normally protect or not normally open to the public. So sometimes you can get a little sneak peek through one of our guided hikes as well. I always like to mention as well that since we are a registered charity, we are also a member-based charity or organization. And so I always like to give a little bit of a shout out to our members who help fund and support a lot of the important work that we are doing, as well as our amazing group of volunteers that we have as well that support different stewardship activities that we are running throughout the year at the Conservancy. So that's a little bit about us. And we'll jump right into our reptiles now. So I always like to start these kinds of presentations off by taking everyone back to high school biology class, and looking at the taxonomic breakdown of our species that we're talking about. So hopefully everyone has a bit of a recollection of the different taxonomic levels, starting at the high level of kingdom, of course, and then narrowing down further and further through phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. Species being where we get down to those specific individual species, of course. So in terms of our reptiles, they belong to the animal kingdom or Animalia kingdom. Um, and the phylum they belong to is Chordata, meaning they do have a backbone and a skeletal system. Where we get into our reptiles is in the class level of taxonomic breakdown. So the reptile class or Reptilia class. And then we have four different orders of reptiles, starting with squamata or the squamates, which are our snakes and lizards, as well as our amphisbaenids, which are another group of squamates type of reptile that isn't really found where we are up in North America. So we won't spend too much time getting into them, but we'll talk about our snakes and our lizards that belong to that order. Our testudines or testudines, which are our turtles and our tortoises, with their, shell. Their big shell is what sort of represents our testudines. There's the crocodilian order as well, which is what our crocodiles and alligators belong to. And then we've got the rhynchocephalians, which are a primitive type of lizard that is only found in New Zealand. And there's actually only one species that even belongs to this order. But those are the four main orders of our reptile class that we're talking about today. And of course, we'll be focusing on the squamates and the testudines. So a little bit more about our reptiles and what characteristics they all share that really, form the reptile class. So as I mentioned, it's broken down into the four orders: our squamates, testudines, crocodilians, and rhynchocephalians. And the characteristics that they have in common include that they are ectotherms, meaning they are cold-blooded and they require outside sources of heat and temperature and environmental factors to regulate their body temperature. So that's why you often find them in open areas that receive a lot of sun so that they can warm themselves up through the heat of the sun. Um, because they don't use their own energy to regulate their body temperature like humans do, they have a very, very slow metabolism, which means they also do not eat very often. Snakes will eat maybe once a week, and that will be enough to sustain them. They have scaled skin, which is impermeable, which allows them to retain a lot of water, which means they also require less water. They don't need to be drinking all day like humans do to stay healthy. They have shelled eggs, which also helps with retaining water and moisture, allowing them to not dry out when they're laid on land in different substrates. And they breathe air throughout their entire lives using their lungs, so they can live completely independent of water. Often, reptiles and amphibians can be mixed up between the two of them, but our amphibians will have moist skin that they're able to breathe through. So one of those main differences is our amphibians have moist skin, whereas our reptiles have scaled, very dry skin, of course. So I think this might be one of the only questions I have for you guys. So feel free to unmute yourselves once I ask it. But across the entire world, there are about 12,000 different species of reptiles. So my question is for you guys, how many different reptiles do you think, and reptile species specifically, I mean, so how many species do you think we have in Muskoka? Feel free to unmute and give give a guess if you can.
11.
11. That's a good guess. We do have a few more than 11. Repeat that, sorry.
25.
25. We have a little bit less than 25. We have 20. We've got 27 in the province, as a little hint, if you will. Plus, we do have 2 extirpated species as well that are no longer found in the province. But of the 27 that live in Ontario, we get 18 of them here in Muskoka. So you guys were all pretty close in there for sure. So of the 18, 6 of them are turtles that are found in Muskoka. There are 8 different species of turtle in the province, however. We've got 11 snakes in Muskoka of the 18 that are found in Ontario. And of course, we do have Ontario's one lizard as well. So that's pretty special. So thank you guys for guessing. I appreciate it. And we'll jump into our turtles first. So here we go. So all across the world, we have 361 different species of turtle. And as mentioned, we have 8 in Ontario and 6 of them can be found in Muskoka. So a little bit about our turtles and what kind of characteristics they all share. So they have fused ribs and a backbone, which form their carapace, or the back of their shell, if you will. I'm just going to turn on my laser pointer, their carapace. And on their underside, they have hard, bony plates that form the plastron that's found on their belly, which you can see here. So contrary to popular belief, our turtles cannot come out of their shells. They are a part of their skeletal system and they are all connected in there. So they can't come out of their shells like Franklin made many people believe as children. They can be terrestrial, semi-aquatic, or fully aquatic. In Ontario, all of our turtles are considered to be semi-aquatic, meaning they can spend time in the water and on land as well. And there are certain species that will spend a lot more time in the water, and there are a couple species that will tend to spend more time on land as well. But generally, they are all considered semi-aquatic. Um, our fully aquatic species would be our sea turtles, which we don't get in Ontario. But male sea turtles will spend their entire lives at sea after they hatch out on their beaches, and only female turtles will return to the shore to lay their eggs. And then, of course, our terrestrial turtles, or members of the testudine order, are oh my God, I can't think of the word, are tortoises, sorry, which are completely terrestrial, and they may just wander into shallow areas of water here and there on really warm days, but they aren't adapted for swimming. Our turtles, like I've mentioned a bit already, do lay their eggs on land. No turtles are capable of laying their eggs in water, and they do need to incubate in substrate on land. And lastly, when looking at how to identify our turtles and what features to look for, you'll want to consider the patterns and colors on their shell. Their bellies will have unique colors and patterns as well, and their face, their necks, and their legs. So you'll want to look at basically all aspects of their body, and the patterns and colors that are found there. And you'll also want to consider the shape of the shell. So whether it is more flat, more aerodynamic, if you will, or if it's more domed shaped. And you'll also want to consider the outside edges of their carapace as well, and whether they have serrations on the outsides of their shells. And we'll now move into how to identify all of the different species that we have here in Muskoka. So starting off with our most common species, the Midland painted turtle. They are a relatively small turtle, growing to about 15 centimeters in size. And all of the size measurements that I will mention are measuring from the top to the bottom of the carapace. So it doesn't include their head or their tail in that length measurement. As I mentioned, they're the most common species in Muskoka and also the most common in the province as well. They have a very smooth, dark shell, which is often you can see it from a distance because it's very shiny in the sunlight. And they will have red and orange markings on their shell that you may not always be able to make out, but generally you can look for that as a feature to help identify them. Their head and legs have yellow stripes, and they've got two yellow dots on the back of their head, which can be really helpful if you're looking at them from a distance and you've got your binoculars up. If you see these two yellow dots on the back of their head that almost look like ears, you know you're looking at a painted turtle for sure. They're pretty general in what habitats you'll be able to find them in. So no matter what wet area you're looking at, whether it's a pond, river, lake, marsh, swamp, so on and so forth, chances are you'll find some painted turtles living in there. Um, I'll also mention as well that you'll notice on our screens as we go through the different species that we've got some lettering at the bottom of the screen here. And so that is our provincial and federal listings for the species. So whether they are at risk or not. So the left is the provincial listing. NAR means not at risk. And then the right is our federal listing. So federally, the Midland painted turtle is recognized as a special concern species, which is the lowest level of risk. The other letters that you'll see are THR for threatened, which is the next level, and END for endangered, which is the highest level of being at risk. So keep an eye on that as well as we go through our different species. The last thing I'll mention for the painted turtle is that they do have a little bit of sexual dimorphism, which means that you can tell the difference between males and females. So our male painted turtles will have longer fingernails, specifically on their front legs. And they'll actually use their fingernails and their arms during their mating displays. So when they're trying to attract a female, they will sort of tickle their fingers in front of the female's face and swim backwards. Um, and I was actually out with a coworker last spring, and we were lucky enough to actually um, see this behavior, and we were able to get a video of it as well. So I will share that on the next slide here, and you can see that mating display. You can see the male on the left, and the female seems to be interested in entertaining him. But that was a pretty cool experience that we got to have standing on a beaver dam at our Silver Doe Nature Reserve in Gravenhurst last April. Okay, so our next species that we'll talk about is our common snapping turtle. They are our largest species, with their carapace growing up to about 45 centimeters long. They are a large and robust turtle. Um, they actually have a very small plastron on the underside of their body, which means that they can't tuck themselves into their shells to protect themselves like a lot of our other species can. So that's why they are known to snap to defend themselves, because they don't have the ability to retract and protect themselves like other species do. And of course, that's how they get their name as well. When looking at their carapace, it can be any variation of gray, black, brown, sometimes green if it has some algae growing on it as well. And it is a very low carapace, so very flat carapace with a serrated posterior margin. So if you look at the bottom of the shell, let me see if I can zoom in here. This is just a little hatchling about the size of a toonie that I found in Mississauga a few years ago. But you can see that it's got these serrated edges to that bottom part of their carapace. So that's another key feature for our snapping turtle. They've got a very long tail with large triangular scales, which gives them a very prehistoric look. As mentioned, they've got a small plastron and they're pretty general in their habitats as well. So you'll find them in a variety of different wet areas. Next here is our northern map turtle. Um, There is a large amount of sexual dimorphism between these species, with females growing to up to double the size of males when they're fully mature. So females can grow up to about 27 centimeters long in terms of their carapace, whereas males are only about 13 centimeters. So it can be really easy to tell when you're looking at a male versus a female. They have a very low and flat carapace as well, with yellow markings that look like contour lines, which is, of course, how they get their name. As they get older, the markings do tend to fade, and it's a little bit harder to see compared to when they are younger, and those contour lines are very easy to see. They will also have those markings on their face and legs. Let me zoom in a little bit for you guys if I can. Um, so you can see those contour lines on their face and neck there. The carapace of the northern map turtle is also serrated on the posterior edge, similar to our snapping turtle. And they do tend to have a ridge down the back, so that you can sort of see their spine coming through the shell, if you will. They're a bit more specific in their habitat, as they do large bodies of water. So you'll find them in larger lakes and rivers, but you won't really find them in smaller wetlands at all. And they are a special concern species as well. And so is our snap turtle, which I forgot to mention on the last slide. Our eastern musk turtle, also known as the stink pot, because they will release a musky smell when they are handled or disturbed or feeling threatened. They're a really small turtle, only about 13 centimeters large is how big they will get. They do have a pretty domed carapace, as you can see with this individual here, and they've got these white stripes and markings on their head and neck. They can sometimes be mistaken for small snapping turtles. They do look quite similar. They do have that more pointed snout that snapping turtles sort of have as well. But the main thing to look for is that they won't have that serrated edge on their posterior edge of their carapace, or a big tail with those ridges that a snapping turtle will have. In terms of their habitat, they like really slow moving and well vegetated ponds, lakes, and swamps. So they will spend their time foraging along the bottoms of these slow moving waterways, which is why they tend to have a more domed shell. So they don't need to have that flat, more aerodynamic shell for really swimming through the water in more open waters like the map turtle, painted, and snapping. But they don't need to move quickly, they're just moving slowly. And so a lot of our turtles that prefer these more vegetated habitats to live in will have more of a domed carapace because they don't need to be aerodynamic to be swimming through the water. Often they'll be seen aqua basking as well. So if you're swimming through lily pads, take a look around you and you might just happen to see a eastern musk turtle floating amongst the lily pads. So not completely hauled out of the water to bask, but still hanging out in the water and still catching those rays from the sun. Um, these guys are very aquatic. They won't travel very far on land. They'll only travel a few meters from water to lay their eggs. And again, they are unfortunately listed as a special concern species. Next is our Blandings turtle. This is a more medium-sized turtle with their carapace growing to about 20 centimeters in length. They've got this very high domed shell as well, which means they really like our shallow ponds, marshes, bogs, vegetated lakes, where they can forage along the bottom of the waterways as well. They can be pretty easy to identify if you get a good look at their head and neck, as they've got this beautiful yellow chin and throat. Their carapace is black to gray, and it does have yellow flecking on it. When they're younger, it's a bit easier to see opposed to when they get more weathered with age, but you can still sort of see those flecks on their shell here. Um, they are the second most terrestrial species that we have. So you will often see them crossing roads like this big individual here. You can see the yellow line of the road there, traveling up to 1 kilometers to nest and lay their eggs. There is a little bit of sexual dimorphism with this species as well, but only if you can really get a good look at their upper lip. So females, let me see if I can zoom in again. Females almost have this sort of tiger stripe pattern on their upper lip. It's lighter and you can see these stripes coming down compared to our males, which will have a very dark black upper lip compared to females. So if you get a good look on one, if you see one crossing the road, you might be able to notice that feature. Provincially, In Ontario, they are listed as a threatened species, and federally, they are endangered as well, unfortunately. Our last turtle that we'll talk about, that's found here in Muskoka, is our spotted turtle, and it's one of the most rare turtles as well. They're very, very small in size, their carapace only growing to about 12 centimeters long. They have a black, slightly domed carapace, as you can see, with these really distinct dots or spots found all over their back. Their head and legs are dark with these yellowy orange spots as well. And generally, the males will have a more bright orange color to them compared to the females, which will be a bit more dull. Um, and in terms of habitat, these guys are really specialized as well, preferring very, very vegetated bogs, fens, marshes, and wet meadows that are full of vegetation. And unfortunately, these guys are considered endangered both provincially and federally as well. So those are all of our turtles, and we'll keep things moving onto our snake and our lizard, which of course, hopefully you guys remember, belong to the Squamata order. So across the world, there are 7,396 species of lizard, and we're lucky in Ontario and Muskoka that we get one of them. That we'll talk about today. When looking at our snakes, there's about 3,789 species, with 17 in Ontario. So what kind of features do our snakes and lizard share? They have long, slender bodies. When looking at our snakes, they will have 0 limbs, so no arms or legs. And our lizards here in Muskoka and in Ontario, we'll have 4 limbs, but in other regions across the world, there are still lizards that will have no legs or limbs at all, and some that just have 2 upper limbs. But here in Muskoka, ours have 4 limbs. They can lay eggs or have live birth as well. Um, and when looking at how to identify these little critters, you'll want to consider the pattern and coloring on their back as well as on their belly as well, the size and length of the body as well as the shape. So we have some snakes that are very long and slender bodied, and we have some that are really big and thicker bodied and not as slender. And then another thing that you'll want to look for is the scale type. So of course, our snakes and lizards are covered in scales, individual scales, and they can either be smooth or keeled. And I drew a little diagram down here. So keeled scales will have a line that runs down the middle of them, as you can see on the right here, which will give our snakes a more rough appearance compared to snakes that have smooth scales, and of course will look more smooth as well. And we'll jump into our first species, which again is our most common species, the eastern garter snake. So they will generally be between 46 and 137 centimeters long. So there's quite a variety of sizes that you can find, of course, depending on age as well. They are one of our long and slender snakes. They are considered to be medium to thick bodied, but they're generally pretty slender. And they have keeled scales, giving them a bit of a rougher appearance. They have yellow and black stripes, but they can also be variable in color. As you can see, this individual here has some more red coloration towards it. And there are also garter snakes that are completely melanistic as well, meaning they appear completely black. So color can be variable depending on their genetics. They don't have any patterning on their belly. And their head is wider than their neck. As you can see here, they've sort of got like a little pinch point behind the head where it is more slender. They're very general in terms of their habitat. You can find them in all different habitats in rural and urban areas as well. And they are not at risk in the province or in the country. The Decay's brown snake is one of our smaller snakes, 23 to 53 centimeters long. They have a slender body as well and keeled scales. They are brown, gray, or beige in color, as you can see in the photos here. But they've got this light stripe that goes down the back, which is bordered by these black dots. So they are striped like a garter snake, but they will always have a light colored stripe down the back with those spots to look for. They have a cream or beige belly, and they've got these black marks underneath the eye and behind the eye that you can look for as well. They're pretty general in their habitats as well. You'll find them in forests, fields, wetlands, rock barrens, and they're often found in urban areas as well. And they are an unlisted species too. Our smallest snake that we have here is our northern red-bellied snake, 20 to 40 centimeters long. They've got a very slender and thin body with keeled scales. They can be variable in color as well, but they're usually brown, gray, or a bit reddish as well. Of course, you guys could probably guess that they do have a red belly, which of course is how they get their name. It can sometimes be a bit more orange in color as well. Um, and they've got right on the back of their head this sort of lighter colored diamond shape, if you will, that you can look for. And you can see that here at the top of their back stripe there as well. So they'll have a light central stripe down the back, which is bordered by two darker stripes that are not broken up compared to the brown snake, where there are those broken up dots down the back. It will be a solid stripe down the back of the northern red-bellied snake. You'll find these guys in a lot of different habitats as well. Forests, fields, meadows, and rock barrens are all good places to look for them. Next here is our northern ringneck snake, 25 to 70 centimeters long. They have a very, very slender body and they have smooth scales. So you can see they've got that smooth and shiny appearance compared to some of the keeled snakes that we've been looking at. Their body is a solid grayish blue color. And under their underside is this yellowy orange color that you can see on the tail in this sort of blurred background here. They get their name for the light colored, cream colored ring around their neck, which you can see on both of these individuals. And you'll find them in a variety of habitats as well, forests and rocky outcrops and barrens. And they are a more nocturnal species, so you'll find them under cover a lot during the day, but you might find them out and about at nighttime. Another not at risk species I'll mention as well. Next here we have the northern water snake, which is one of our largest species, about 61 to 140 centimeters long. They're a very thick-bodied snake with keeled scales, giving them that rough appearance. Their body will be gray to brown with brownish red blotches on their back. However, as they get older and more weathered, this pattern will fade and darken and be harder to see compared to when they're young. And it'll be very obvious blotching on their back. As a very aquatic species, their eyes, which you can see here, are positioned really high on their head as well to allow them to see really well while they're swimming through the water. So like if you think of a hippo that have those really high eyes on the top of their head, so they can see while they're in the water. And any habitats you'll find them in will be associated with any kind of open water body as well. And thankfully, they are a species that is not at risk as well. Next here is our smooth green snake. They can be between 30 and 60 centimeters long. So they're a medium-sized snake. They have a slender body with smooth, shiny scales. When they are mature, they will be a more yellow-green color compared to when they're young, when they will be a bit more of a more blue-green color. But they will be green throughout their entire lives, making them very easy to identify. Their belly will be a bit of a lighter color as well if you get a look at their belly. Um, in terms of a unique behavior that they have, is they will actually mimic a blade of grass in the wind when they're hunting. So if they're in a field and you find them hunting, you might see them sort of swaying back and forth as if they're a blade of grass, which is pretty cool to see. They're often associated with mixed forests and old fields and meadows, but you will find them in rock barrens as well, and they are not at risk. Next, we have our eastern ribbon snake here, another medium-sized snake, 46 to 86 centimeters long. They have a very thin and slender body with keeled scales. Um, and they look very similar to an eastern garter snake with those black and yellow stripes that they have. But in my opinion, they're a more regal looking, a fancier looking garter snake with very crisp and distinct lines. They look like they've been painted on. So they've got the yellow stripe that goes down the back, two black stripes bordered by another yellow stripe, and then this sort of bottom stripe that you'll see on their side is more of a cinnamon brown color. Um, so if you see those distinct, clear and crisp stripes, chances are you're looking at a ribbon snake and not a garter snake. And they also have this unique feature where they've got this little white, yellowish white crescent mark in front of the eye that a garter snake will lack as well. They're more specific with their habitats as well. They will be in habitats that are associated with water. So any mixed forests, meadows that are nearby to lakes and marshes is where you'll find these guys. And they are recognized provincially and federally as a special concern species. Next here, we got our eastern milk snake, another medium to large species, 60 to 132 centimeters long when they are adults. They have a long, slender body with shiny, smooth scales, as you can see here. The base of their body is a light gray to brown color, and they've got these reddish brown blotches on their back. If you get a look at their head, let me zoom in on this guy. They have um, this Y or V-shaped light colored marking on the head, which is a key feature to look for. And it will be unique to every species, or sorry, to every individual as well. So often when people are researching milk snakes, they can learn individuals that are in their research area by photographing their head and comparing those marks to identify them. If you take a look at their belly, it is black and white checkered. And a unique behavior that they have is that sometimes they will rattle their tail when they're feeling threatened to try and mimic a rattlesnake and be a bit more scary. But you don't need to worry about them. They're non-venomous and are not a big threat to you at all. They're just trying to scare predators away sometimes. You'll find these guys in mixed forests, fields, dunes, in urban areas, and agricultural areas and rock barrens. So they are pretty general in their habitats as well. They aren't a listed species provincially, but they are recognized federally as a special concern species. Just a few more snakes left. Here we've got our eastern hognose snake. They are a very large, thick-bodied snake, generally between 50 and 115 centimeters long when full grown. Um, they are extremely variable in color. So they can be beige, grayish brown like this individual here, but they can also be orangey and darker black colors, olive colored as well. Um, they do have blotches that you'll see along their back, similar to the milk snake. Um, but you won't actually always see these. Like sometimes they can be really faded or really dark that you can't even make out those blotches. So very, very variable in color and patterning. They do have an upturned snout, which you can sort of see on this guy here, which of course is how they get the hognose name. And they've got these distinct darker marks on either side of their neck, which no matter how variable the pattern is, whether they're like a more solid brown, you should be able to see those darker marks behind the head. They have a couple different behaviors that they will exhibit if they're feeling threatened. They will flatten their neck to try to resemble a cobra and be scary. And if that doesn't work, sometimes they will play dead. They'll roll around on their back and stick their tongue out and try and make you think that they are dead as a defense mechanism. Um, you'll find them in forests, fields, meadows, and rocky areas, generally associated with sand because they are a burrowing snake, which is why they've got that hog nose to help them dig through the sand. So they will be associated with sandy areas. And unfortunately, they are a threatened species. Next, we have the Massasauga or the Massasauga rattlesnake, our one venomous species that we have in Ontario. Another very thick, heavy-bodied snake with keeled scales. Um, they will be about 47 to 100 centimeters long. They've got this grayish brown body with dark saddle-shaped blotches on their back. So they're sort of pinched in the middle like a saddle. And of course, they will have a rattle at the end of their tail. Sometimes it can be missing, but that's pretty uncommon that they wouldn't have a rattle at the end of their tail. Um, they also have these dark stripes on their head, um, back here and behind the eye, and vertical pupils as well, which is another giveaway that they're a member of the viper family, which is a venomous group of snakes. In terms of habitat, they're found in mixed forests, often associated with bogs or fens. You'll also find them in fields, meadows, and rock barrens. And unfortunately, they are a threatened species as well. Our last snake that we'll chat about is our eastern fox snake, which I think is the only snake species that I haven't been able to see yet in my career. They're another large, thick-bodied snake, 90 to 182 centimeters long. They have sort of like a loaf-shaped body. Um, they are gray, tan, brown, sort of orangish underneath with these brown blotches along their back. Their head will turn a copper orange color with age, so you won't always see that bright orange color on young individuals. And they have a checkered underside belly as well. They're very specific in their habitats. They're found on the shorelines and islands on and around and in Georgian Bay. So we don't find them inland in Muskoka. They're on the coast. And they are a threatened and endangered species. Those were all of our snakes. So we'll chat about our common five-line skink next before we get on to our last slide. So our one lizard, our five-line skink, can grow to about 20 centimeters long, including their tail. They have a black body with five light stripes that go down the back. And on our young juveniles, for the first couple years of their life, they will have this beautiful bright blue tail, which they will lose as they get older in this older, more mature individual up top that you can see. Um, they do have sexual dimorphism as adults as well. So mature males will have a orange copper colored head with really large sort of poofed out cheeks. And females will be slightly orange, but they will be more slender. So their cheeks will be about the same width as their head, like this individual here. Um, they're associated with open rock barrens and fields in and around forests. They can lose their tail as well and regenerate it as a defense mechanism if a predator is coming after them. And our population here in Muskoka is a special concern species population or species. So those are all of the different critters that we will look at and that you could possibly find in Muskoka. Um, I'll move on to the next slide, which is just chatting a little bit about the threats to reptiles and how you can help. So as you saw, most of our or many of our species are listed as at risk. And so these are some of the things that are threatening them and some things we can do to help out. Um, so one of the big things, of course, is habitat loss as more habitat is being removed and developed. So one thing you can do to support habitat loss or the prevention of habitat loss is to support organizations who are working to protect and research reptiles and their habitats. Um, Fragmentation and road mortality as more roads are built and habitats are fragmented by different developments. Um, our snakes and reptiles, of course, are needing to cross these roadways in these developed areas, which unfortunately results in increased mortality, of course. So when possible and when it's safe to do so, something you can do to help is help reptiles across the roadways when you do find them. And of course, putting your safety first. You don't want to be pulling over on the side of Highway 11 when there's tons of cars driving past to help a turtle across. But if it is safe to do so, that's one thing you can do to help. Um, Unfortunately, especially our snakes are threatened by persecution. So there is a lot of fear around snakes. And unfortunately, sometimes people will go out of their way to harm snakes. So one thing you can do to help with that is to share your love and knowledge of reptiles with others. And if you know someone has a fear of snakes, just to try and spread some awareness about how they're not that scary, really, to help and break that stigma. And then lastly, unfortunately, a lot of our reptiles are subject to poaching for the pet trade. So our reptiles can be really cute, and a lot of people do like them and they want to keep them as pets, which means sometimes people will go out of their way to steal them from their natural habitats and sell them. So it's important that if you are finding reptiles or any sensitive species and taking photos of them, to make sure that you're not sharing that sensitive location information on the internet. and even removing the location from your photos, so that if you are posting pictures, people can't go in and find out where those animals were found. So those are a few things you can do to help. Our reptiles are really important members of our ecosystems. They help to control pest populations. And take care of our ecosystems by cleaning up a lot of rotten materials. A lot of our turtles are out in the wetlands eating, a lot of decaying matter and keeping our wetlands and waterways clean. And they're also a really important food source for a lot of our animals out there as well. So a really important key member of the food chain that we want to try and help keep around for a long time to come. So it is 11 o'clock, so I realize we've sort of reached the end of our presentation. I've spent a lot of time chatting about our reptiles, but if anyone has any questions, I can pull up the screen here again. Feel free to unmute yourselves and ask any questions you might have. And I've also got my contact information there if you'd like to call me at any point. And we've got a question there, I think.
Yeah, hi Amanda. When are snakes coming out of their sleep, or because it's like one digit at night, cool days, sometimes we have almost 20 degrees, and we're always like, when are we going to see them again because we miss them?
Yeah, that's awesome. So generally, once temperatures are consistently over 0 degrees at night, is when they'll start waking up, and when we really start getting more sunny days, is when they'll start coming out. So it was sometime last week that I started seeing snakes again. Um, so once it warmed up and the sun was staying out more consistently. Um, is when you'll start seeing them.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, looks like got some comments in there. Thank you guys. Yeah, if you have any other questions, let me know or take a photo or jot down my information. Feel free to send me pictures if you need help identifying something. I'm always happy to connect and answer any questions. But thank you guys so much for joining today and listening to the presentation. I hope you enjoyed it and hope to see you again in the future.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Okay, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks again. Bye-bye.